What's up, y'all? It's New Brighton breaking down the radio frequency waves that's going to be shooting through these through the atmosphere and going to be around you on a high level. Now, I just started receiving this intel from the future on the 5G and what how it's going to play out in into the future, dealing with um, the mutation of these body cells. So when you're dealing with this 5G now, this video is about the lead. Now, a lot of people know that when you used to go get an X-ray, and back in the day they used to give you that lead jacket. That lead jacket was to protect you from the radio frequency waves when they had gave you an X-ray. Now, when you're dealing with this lead, I was sitting here thinking, and I had to literally go in my room and separate myself from everybody, and then I started receiving this futuristic intel. Now, the lead, what the lead is going to do, the lead is going to give you a balance. Now, I'm talking to the so-called black race on the planet when it comes to this 5G radio frequency waves, because there's going to be some beneficial parts from it, and then there's going to be some downsides of these radio frequency waves. Now, one of the downsides of these radio frequency waves is going to be, if you're not mentally being extended and you don't serve a purpose on this planet to move the planet forward, then the 5G radio waves will affect you, and it will start to mutate you. It will start to mutate your cells, and it will start to mutate your thought process. And thinking about, it's going to mutate your thought process and get you start thinking about, stuff that doesn't have to do with the future. You're going to be still relying on Google, relying on Siri, relying on Alexa to get information, to put a cap, not even a cap, to put a stop to you receiving futuristic intel. Now, when I'm gonna give you an example. Now, back in the 1950s, when the United States was at war with Japan, what did they do? They dropped the Hiroshima bomb, the first nuclear bomb to be dropped in Japan. So when they had dropped that bomb, they sent the I forgot what they're called, but they sent, after you do something, it's just like when you kill a deer or you go in and you check on, you check on your kill. So when they had did that, they were gathering intel on the effects of the radio frequency waves that were dropped in Japan. And as time went on, what the radiation did was, the things that served a purpose, they got I'm just going to say extended. And one of the creatures that got extended was the Japanese giant wasp. Now, when you look at that wasp, it is one of the I think it's the most biggest wasp on the planet right now. Excuse me. So the reason why it got extended is because it serves a purpose. What do bees and wasps do? They pollinate. They go around the planet and they pollinate. They help vegetation grow around the planet. They serve a purpose, a futuristic purpose. So when that bomb had got dropped, and they had went, I think it was dropped in sometime in the 1950s, the bomb had got dropped. But then after they had went in and do the intel entry, sort of like data entry, they started to see certain creatures, reptiles, insects were being mutated. They were being mutated. And that's where they got that movie from. They got that movie from that Godzilla movie. They got that movie because what that movie was portraying was that after that bomb got dropped in that radiation, they had it was called I'm not sure, but I'm just saying what I would call it, dead zones. So they had radiation dead zones. And so with that movie Godzilla, they were portraying that the lizards that were in Japan had started to mutate. They started to get bigger. They started to take over. The Godzilla lizard started to take over Japan. So that's what that was portraying. It was portraying the mutation of certain reptilians, animals, and insects. Now back to the Japanese wasp. Now that wasp, you go on Google. Like I said, when you go on Google, Google's really good with persons, places, and things. When you go on Google, you go on there and you look at the Japanese wasp and compare the size of that wasp to other wasps. It mutated. It got bigger. And one thing about the Japanese wasp, they can actually invade a bee colony and take the whole bee colony over, take their honey, and just take everything over, for the future of their own eggs. So back to this lead. The lead is supposed to be used for a balance of the radiation. That's what the lead's going to be used for. It's going to be used for a balance. Now, mankind, the humans, they're going to use the lead on a massive scale because they don't want no radiation. They don't want to be touched by it. So I wouldn't even be surprised if they already started, years ago, started making cars, planes, houses with lead coatings in them, because they don't want to be exposed to it at all. And when you're dealing with the so-called black race, you want to get a little bit of the radiation, because all this stuff is playing out from the future. The ones that serve a purpose are going to be extended. Just like the Japanese wasp, it got extended. It started taking over. When it comes to the bee colony, taking over these bee colonies. It's what the Japanese wasp was doing. But investing in the lead, because you're going to want to have some lead. And one thing about the stock market, I'm not into the stock market, but I was sitting here thinking like, man, I said, if they already knew about the lead, and if they don't, and they see this video, you're going to have a lot of people start investing in it, especially mankind. They're going to be investing in this lead because mankind do not want the radiation. They really don't. When you're dealing with our people, we're going to want a little bit of it, but not the whole dose. You don't want the whole dose because the Japanese wasps, the ones that mutated and evolved, they were the ones on the outskirts of where the bomb got dropped. So they didn't get the full dose of that radiation that was being projected out. So yeah, breaking down the 5G radio frequency waves, breaking it down. And I was going to say that before in this video, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, there's got to be something good about these 5G radio frequency waves. And there is something, I don't want to say good, but something extended about it. And yeah, all this is playing out. All this is being sent through the atmosphere as intel for them to do this. They have to do it. It's going to be done. So the investment in lead. So when you want to invest, maybe go get, because I see a lot of so-called black race. They're investing in copper, a lot of these gems and stones, but the lead is going to help you deflect um some of the radio frequency waves. It's not going to deflect all of it, but it's going to deflect some, because the ones that serve a purpose, they're going to want some of those radio frequency waves. So you'll mutate into something greater, something more powerful, something being mentally extended from the future. That's why they're putting them up. They don't even know. Um, they ain't even know it was going to get to this point, because these radio frequency waves that's going to be sent out, they serve a purpose for extended mind for the future. And then back to the stock market, because I'm not into the stock market or nothing like that, but I was sitting here thinking, and that once the word gets out, if it's not already out, but I don't think it is. I haven't seen nothing on social media, because I deal with intel, from the ascendants from the future. But that might go up as far as stock goes, and people start buying lead, because mankind, they really don't want none of this radio frequency waves to go through their system. So, and I got a pic here on the mutated. Give me one sec. And that's how the Japanese wasp mutated after the bomb dropped in Hiroshima. That's a regular wasp, lower right hand corner, and that's the radiation wasp. And that goes back to the giants on the planet. When they're talking about, there's a lot of names for them: the Anunnakis, the Amens. There's so many names for these so-called gods, when they were just the first ones that walked the planet. They were the first ones to step into the atmosphere and start to generate and create life on this planet, intelligent life. So yeah, man, that's the lead. If you when you go get the lead, you want a little bit of lead, because you don't want the whole dose. The reason why you don't want the whole dose is because the wasps that were in Japan, that were real close to the Hiroshima bomb, they all had died and got wiped away. The ones that were on the outskirts that got a little bit of the radiation, they ended up mutating and extending and being one of the most feared wasps. Well, actually the most feared wasp on the planet. Breaking down the 5G radio frequency waves. And then that movie Godzilla also deal with that movie Godzilla. That movie came out, I think, in 1954. And then all of a sudden, the lizard was real big, taking over Japan. Why would they show you that? The mutation of these radio frequency waves, these 5G. So especially if you don't serve a purpose mentally for the future, and you consume these waves, it's going to extend your lack of intel. So yeah, man, this the activated one, New Brighton, breaking down the radio frequency waves for 5G. You want some lead around your house? I always try to come with solutions on my channel. One of the solutions is to get that lead, because especially if you don't serve a purpose mentally, you're going to want a whole bunch of lead, just like mankind. So this is New Bright, man. I'm up.